I think now, if Naomi, if you're
Yeah.
ready,
Yes,
right,
eloquent
over
as
to you.
ever, Roger. Thanks ever so much. And honestly, nearly everything I would want to say has been said by somebody in the course of this evening, a really vibrant discussion. I'd like to start though by saying that I welcome Philip Pearce's contribution. We need to involve people who are not familiar with party building. We need to involve people for whom this is all new. Because we do need a transformative program, we do need to actually change society. I mean, one of the problems with Jeremy's sort of soft social democratic approach is that you talk about wanting to shift the balance of power and power and wealth in society, but actually you are tweaking it. Now, obviously, somebody like Jeremy wants to make significant tweaks, and somebody like Starmer is quite happy with it the way it is. He's happy with trickle-down neoliberal politics, and that's utter anathema to us. So, I mean, I think some of you know Graham Bash, a very close comrade of mine in Jewish Voice for Liberation, and he's also now part of the platform for a Democratic Party. Graham is very clear about this, and what he says, really simple formula. We've got to be politically sharp and have broad appeal. That's what the challenge is, I think. And political sharpness means, yes, we are challenging capitalism. I like the way Zara puts it. She says we're not fighting over crumbs from the table. We want to take the whole bloody bakery. That's the way we should think about it. So I think there's a lot of agreement here today about that, and but we have to welcome into the movement everybody in whose interest that sort of platform is working or could work. So, I mean, there are things that Philip said that I think we have to acknowledge. Groups who went into the conference aiming to disrupt, or actually with the idea of closing down the conference or rejecting it and going and holding one of their own, that was very counterproductive. And don't think that won any friends for people on the left at all. And I didn't particularly want to be associated with that sort of thing. But I have to say that the complaints that people have aired here about a lack of transparency and accountability, this is not imaginary. Sadly, well, not sadly, I'm pleased that I've been one of those people who's been involved going back nearly 3 years in having discussions with all sorts of people about the need to form something new. And I don't know if some of you will remember that myself and Ken Loach and Andrew Feinstein and a number of others, Audrey White in Liverpool and others, we created something called the For the Many Network. And our idea, and it was something that Jeremy agreed with initially, was that what we need is a movement. People have been distressed by the destruction of the Corbyn project, Jeremy's expulsion, removal from the party, the defeat in the election in December 2019, and so on. And we needed to rebuild because the people are still there and the need is still there, the desire is still there to transform society. And I'll talk about Andrew in a minute. um, so we needed to build a movement, and it was no good just coming out and saying there was too much of this. Jeremy, create a new party now. There was too much of that. It was like a sort of messiah complex that we had to have this one person, this iconic figure who would do it for us. No, we had to work at building a movement. Um, Unfortunately, the whole political landscape changed so dramatically. We founded For the Many in Liverpool in October 2023. You will remember what happened in October 2023, which transformed the whole sort of political environment that we were working in. Labour succeeded in winning power and shifted to the right so rapidly. I think we were all, we were left in the slipstream. We were horrified. It was just worse than any of us could have predicted, though lots of us were aware that Starmer and his ilk were in no way friends of the working class. So maybe we shouldn't have been so surprised. So the idea that we needed a party now, it really took off. It seemed to become a necessity, Farage rising, the threat of reform at the ballot box. So we all decided that we did want to build a party. I like the idea somebody's got Andrew Feinstein tied up in his basement. Not true, not true, I'm happy to say. So, yes, we all felt that we needed a party. Yes, lots of discussions started going on. And I'm sorry to say that right from the beginning, the people who we knew from Jeremy's time as leader of the opposition, Lotto, leader of the opposition's office, were in control and very intolerant of people who had a different view of how this should be organised right from the beginning. So I've seen it in many, many meetings, secretive discussions, people being manipulated, one thing told to one person, something different told to other people, people being stitched up. It really, I'm sorry to say, it was so disappointing to see people who claim to be wanting to build a new party to fill the void left by the shift to the right of the Labour leadership. It's a real thing, and that's why there was a lot of dissatisfaction with manipulation at the conference. But anyway, we want to move on from that now, don't we? One thing that Zara has called for, that I think we should press for, is an audit of what has gone on, financial audit and an audit of sort of the data issue and all the stuff that's been going on behind the scenes, because she gets blamed. People from the other faction will, I've heard them calling her a thief and claiming that she's got £1 million of your party money in her personal account. These are the sort of smears that are being spread, and that's completely unacceptable. I'm not saying that Zara is not a saviour either. It's really important. All those people in this meeting who've said, get out there, build your proto branches. Don't wait for the machinations to be concluded. We've got to do it ourselves, and it will be difficult because when we start to build delegate structures and people want to vote in their branches and send representatives to important meetings, if their branches aren't recognised, that will obviously be a bit of an issue. So it's so important that we do our best to win good, dependable people onto the CEC. Everybody was laughing about Phil being very gloomy, and he did raise some serious points about the obstacles that we face. But we really do we have to do it. I mean, this is a crucial historic moment, and if we fail to build a solidly based, grassroots-led, democratic, socialist working class movement, history will never forgive us. I don't agree with people who are saying we don't want anybody who's in the Labour Party to join us. Most of us came out of the Labour Party, lots of us did. And there are still people who are clinging to the idea that if they work hard enough, they can shift it back to a sort of socialist direction, if it ever had one. Those people are gradually learning the lesson, and they will come over to us if we provide something attractive for them to join. I agree with whoever it was said that the Central Executive Committee is an absolutely dreadful name. It sort of smacks of Stalin and so on. But I don't know. Maybe when we've won control of the party, when it's fully democratic, we might be able to think of something more user-friendly. It's really not very nice. Um, we need two more things, but one is about this question of accessibility. And I'm sorry if I didn't explain myself very well. I absolutely am in favour of people for whom access to physical meetings is an obstacle, being able to participate digitally. But I'm talking about participating in the branch meetings, in discussions. It's not hard to do. Lots of organisations operate hybrid meetings these days. What I'm opposed to is people who have not been given access to branch discussions and full, education meetings, all sorts of other activities that we should be doing, being told, just sit at home, we'll send you a list of motions to vote on, and you just vote based on, whatever you've picked up from WhatsApp groups or something. So I hope that is clear. It's down to those of us building the branches to make sure that everybody in our areas has access to educational formative discussions and can contribute to democratic decisions. Um, Last thing, I think, I mean, there's so much we could talk about, but thinking about credible names, people who would be trusted, people who, if they were on this awful CE, let's just call it CEC, not give it its full name, um, people who are principled socialists, people who can be trusted to abide by these principles of accountability, transparency, and put forward democracy. Who are they? Where are they? Well, people have mentioned some names. Andrew Feinstein's been writing a book, and he was pushed out by the current organizing clique. Jeremy, having been a good friend of his, has now regards him as the Antichrist, apparently, because he's supported Zara and the co-leadership model. But Andrew's been writing a book, and he's now finished writing his book, and he is interested in being involved in some shape or form. Ken Loach would be a fantastic person, obviously, to participate. So many people would be delighted to vote for him, but he's very frail, and Ken's position is he'll be very happy to endorse people and to be present, as it were, but he can't take an active role. Jamie Driscoll, sadly, because of the experience, having been asked, along with Andrew Feinstein and Beth Winter, to act as directors of the funds of the pre-Your Party organisation, what was called the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding Limited. He's so bruised by that experience that he has pretty well decided that what he's doing in the Northeast with his own group called Majority UK is enough for him for now. I very much doubt that we're going to get Jamie involved in the early stages, if at all. So just to be clear about that. But hopefully there are other credible individuals who will emerge from all the struggle that we're going that we're engaging in. There are loads of leaders out there. Ian Hodson, the president of the Bakers Union, who was slung out of the Labour Party. You couldn't believe it, could you? He always says, we don't need to wait for leaders to tell us what to do from the top. We are all potential leaders. And that's the attitude we need to take. Yeah, we face a lot of problems, comrades, and but we live in a time when to fail would be a historic disaster. And I just hope that we are able to pull it together and work together and not talk about throwing Jeremy Corbyn out of the party of the left, because he is extremely annoying and he is a social democrat, not a revolutionary, but he's not a Zionist. He compromises too much. He apologizes too much. But people like him need to be within this vast tent that we're trying to build. Yeah, so I go back to Graham Bash's point, politically sharp, but with broad appeal. And let's get on with it. Thanks, everybody, for a great meeting. Thank you, Roger.